Hello and welcome to another episode of Ken Training, where we want to give you, the YouTube audience, the education that you need to tackle jobs like this on your own. Today's job is part of our stucco repair series, and right now the portion of this project that we're on is installing wood trim. So check out the series for other videos, which includes the demolition, and then putting the insulation on the wall, and then putting the building paper on the wall, and the next, and also the weep screed. That was also a portion of the project in the beginning. But right now we're on wood trim, and let's refer to what the code has to say about wood trim and flashings. Okay, so I'm using my abbreviated code version here of Code Check Complete 2nd Edition. Coming over here to the building section. Okay, so now we are looking at exterior wall coverings. We're going down to the section where it talks about flashings, and it tells you that flashings must extend to the exterior, and it gives you the code reference over here, the International Residential Code. Then, here's the required location of flashings. This is for the exterior wall. Come down and it tells you continuously above all projecting wood trim. So here's in the front of the house, and this is on an exterior wall, and you can see this looks like to be a 2x6 or something like that. Above that, which is because it's projecting out, technically flashing should be installed continuously all the way to the exterior. So in this whole house, as this is using it as an example, they actually didn't put the flashing, but so I guess the code has been changed since this house has been constructed. Here is our project area. You can see the building paper on the wall, and now I want to put up some wood trim. This was the original piece of wood trim that came off. This piece of trim here is installed like this. Okay? And you can see how it projects out from the building. So technically this is supposed to have flashing. Also, when I took this apart, you can see some termite damage right there. And you can see, oh, maybe you can't, because no, you can't, I got it buried. But if you check out my series, I know there was termite damage back here too. The paper was all destroyed and everything. And that was probably because I did not have flashing here. We're going to install flashing, and I'll show you that right now. Here is a piece of Z flashing right here I got at the Home Depot. This is what the side profile of it looks like, and it's a little bent up because I cut it with my tin snips. But they're sold in 10-foot sections, and here is the sticker that came on it in case you wanted to look that up on your own. But I think it was like $8 for a 10-foot section at the Home Depot. We have to cut that to the right size, but that's what we're going to be installing. Let me show you how. Okay, so where we are located here in the bottom of the window, there's this is like a piece of aluminum right here, and it's a hollow void that goes up in between. This is how this particular window is constructed. So I know everybody's house is a little bit different, but this is the project that I'm on. So that Z flashing that I showed you, here's the same piece of it, except I cut this profile down right here so that I could fit it underneath here 100%. Then what I'm going to do is I've been playing around with a couple of 2x4s, so I have a couple of 2x4s here. Here's one that I cut in order to get it to fit, so that way when we use this piece right here, we have to cut this one down. I'm trying to show you how I came to this conclusion. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our Z flashing, stick it up there. I'm using this as my template, so to speak. And then you'll see how when this piece is installed here, I want it to be at a slight downward angle. I don't want it to go back like this because I don't want the water to be going towards the house. We always want the water to be shedding away from the property, so we want a slight downward angle. And we're going to do that when we go to put the bottom piece in here. We're going to have to cut a little bit of this profile edge here, and we'll angle the table saw in order to do that. I'll show you that when we get to that step. But before we get to that, what we need to do is we need to take and cut this down, because you can see that it's much bigger than the piece that I have right here that I'm using as my template. I already got my table saw already set up for this exact length, but this is how it's actually going to look. And of course we'll cut the Z-flashing so that it extends all the way across this entire length of wood. That's easy peasy. That's nothing, right? All right, so here's my setup. There's the table saw. You can see that I've already got the fence aligned perfectly so that it'll cut exactly the size that my template is. All we have to do is just cut this piece right here, which we will do right now. Now we'll cut our Z flashing to match this size piece of wood. So all we have to do is take the piece of wood and the Z flashing, match the length up together like this. Then just take our tin snips here and just trim it right there at the same dimension. So I'll just start that and I'll go in straight on that. Same thing with going this way. Just using this as a template. Go right there. Just get it started. Now that I got it started, I can just make sure I just go straight in. That's our scrap. This is the one that we want. And you'll see there, it's a nice fit. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this thing going. Just to prevent getting cut by accident, I'm just going to take a file and just try to deburr this as well. Not spending too much time, but just trying to get it done. Alright, now we know that we want this to be installed here, going underneath that area that we told you about. But over here, it doesn't work out that way because it's got the other piece of window flashing coming down. So what I'm going to do is just put a little slit right there. I flattened out this section of the flashing, and this is what it's going to look like when it goes in. You can see how close this is. It's pretty good. I almost got it perfect. There's a small little gap here, but I can put some sealant on that. This is going to be painted, and plus I'll put sealant there, so there'll be plenty of protection. In retrospect, I wish that I had known about this, and I would have cut this piece longer and I would have done something differently, but that's to water under the bridge now. It's too late, so I'm just going to have to live with it. Okay, so we've got this piece done. Now we've got to cut the angle for the next piece. Here's the next piece you can see how big it is compared to my foot. So it's like a 2x8. Okay, so we have to cut this at a small angle. We need to come over here and figure out what that angle is going to be, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. Okay, so here is the template piece that we were using. Here is our Z flashing that's going to go like this. This is going to go up, and it has to be at a slight angle. Let's see if you're capturing that in the camera. Yeah. Okay, so that has to be at a slight angle. Let's see if I can give you that full detail. See, there's a piece of window flashing from the original window, which my finger is touching right here, that's kind of pushing the top half of this and making this automatically kind of go at an angle. This is our job. Our job is to cut the piece, this piece here, that's going to go on the bottom. And the way that we're going to do that is we're just going to kind of eyeball it. This, let me show you, right like this. All right, we want this to be at a slight downward pitch. Okay, so the water drains down and out. Raise that up just slightly. So the water is going to come down the house, drain out, go over the Z flashing here, and then out, protecting that wood. That's the whole goal. See that gap right where my finger is? We want that gap to be non-existent, so we want to cut a little bit of wood out of the front of whatever that piece is that's sitting over there on the ground. The thickness, we're just going to kind of eyeball this. See that thickness that's right there? It looks like it's about the thickness of 2 saw blades on my table saw. So let's say 1/8 is a table saw. We'll say that 1/4 of an inch. Alright, so let's see how it all comes together. First I'll put this piece up. There we go. Then we'll take this piece, put that up. There we go. Now let's try to show you that detail. See how I'm pitched at an angle right here? So when that goes in, like so, and everything is in tight, that's going to pitch out and pitch away from the house, which is exactly the way we want it. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm prepping this wood here to go on, and what I did is I took my sander and I sanded down the board really well, and then I took my clamp right here, took these 2 clamps, and I clamped it down like this while I drove in these 3-inch deck screws. It's over here somewhere. Alright, so you can see these are just 3-inch exterior deck screws. So then I went and put them in several places. I really got the corner here well. So one there, one there, one there, one here, 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 here. So there's like 6 screws going in across here. Now that all that's done and this is attached exactly the way that I want, I'll show you underneath here. So when that goes up against the wall, it's all going to be in. This is not obviously brand new wood. It's the used piece of wood, and there's some old termite damage here. So I'm going to take some Bondo, and these are some of the old holes that were holding it in. I'm just going to take some Bondo and go over this real fast, so this way it'll be easy to put up. All right, here's the Bondo and the cream hardener that we're going to use. Got some putty knives, got our work surface. Let's get to it. Okay, all done putting on the Bondo cleanup with some paint thinner, and everything's still wet right here, so I'm just going to let that cure out for a couple hours, come back, sand it up. Now, of course, this is just the back side of the board. I didn't have to do that, but as long as I had everything right here and it only took just 5 minutes, I thought, why not go ahead and go through it. Once I get my sander out here and sand off these high spots, it'll be less chance for any potential termite damage or anything like that. It's better to have solid wood when you put it on. So that's why I wanted to take that step and do that. Okay, it's been a few hours and our Bondo has cured out. Now I just have to take my my sanding disc here and some personal protective equipment in order to go ahead and sand that down, and then do a dry fit, make sure it'll fit good, and then we can paint it and then get this thing installed. So that's where we're at. Alright, so what I got is I got the piece of wood here with the flashing on top. I'm going to put it in and show you a dry fit right now. It's a little heavy, but I'll do my best to show you. So I got to find that channel. There it is. Come on. There it is. Okay. So now, once it's in and it's up and it's all the way over, the flashing wants to walk up a little bit, so I'm going to have to tack it down here in a couple of spots. Here's our piece all sanded down, ready for paint. Primer. I'm going to start off with some primer. I've got some kilts too here, and it says that it is made for the exterior, and when you go down to determine what it's going to bond to, one of the uses is for wood, which is what we're working with right here, wood. So that's fine. I've got my brush right here, which is just this all-purpose brush, and I took a wet sponge. I always keep a bucket of water near me with the sponge when I do painting, and I just after I sanded this all down, I blew all the dust off with my blower. Then I take the sponge and wipe off any dust left over after blowing it down, and now we're ready for the primer. So just going to stir it up, get some primer on there, and get one or two coats of paint. This is the time to put it on, because this section right here is where that metal flashing is going to go. I want to put some paint and primer on there now before I do the install to give this protection. And this is the original board. So this board's 40 years old. Now, they never did prime the back, but as long as I'm at this stage, I'm just going to go ahead and prime the whole thing just to seal in everything 100%. So I'll start here at the back, put it up on my blocks, then flip it over, and then go ahead and paint the top. So that's where I'm at. Okay, here you go with one coat of primer on top of our project right now. And you know, I was able to get it all the way top and bottom, which is real good for protection against termites and weather and stuff like that. The drying time for this kilt's primer is 1 hour, so we're just making a note of the clock over there, 5:30, so I can start painting at 6:30. I've got my paint right over here ready to go, which is again an exterior Behr Premium Plus paint in semi-gloss and white. So that is ready to go. I got my brush, and now we'll just let this dry and cure out. Okay, it's 6:30. It's been an hour. let's get to our job. And I moved the operation inside so I could just do it inside the garage. Been an hour. Everything is dry, good to go. We got our paint. I've already stirred it up here. Now this particular paint is Bayer Premium Ultra. It's got a paint and primer combination. Now, by the way, even though that's a paint and primer combination, I always like to give a coat of pure primer first. 1 coat of pure primer, 2 coats of paint, 3 coats in total, I think is the most superior way that you can get your paint job. Recoat time. Recoat time is 4 hours, so I probably won't be giving another coat tonight. No way. So recoat tomorrow for my second coat. Okay, so we got that. Let's get some paint on this puppy. Okay, here is your piece of wood trim with 1 coat of primer, 1 coat of stain, and it's looking pretty good. Pretty good protection on there. Gotta let this dry out for 4 hours, so we'll come back and give it another coat of paint tomorrow, but we still got to install it and then do some touch up anyways. So basically that's where we're at, and we'll actually, now that I'm looking at it, it looks a little, yeah, apparently I dropped a couple of drops on there by accident. Just touch that up real fast. You know what, I must have had wet hands. Okay, we're looking pretty good though. Through it and look through the sheen here just to see if there's anything squirrely going on here. Kind of see a brush stroke right there, but I still have 1 more coat to go anyway, so it's not the end of the world. We're fine. Okay, so this is this is completely dry the next day. 1 coat primer, 1 coat paint, and we're going to put 1 more coat of the paint on right now, right here, and it does look a little blotchy if the camera's picking that up. So it doesn't look bad though at all. So we'll give it 1 more coat and see some thinness right there. So it should totally fill that in and make it a nice solid white. So we'll go for that right now. Okay, just completed the 2nd coat of paint and it's still wet. Gotta let it dry out for a minimum of 2 hours, then I can do the install on it. So just wanted to show you that, but this is a very well sealed piece. Anyways, it's got a lot of paint protection on it for weather, termites, and bugs and things like that. So we got some really good protection here. We'll let this dry out and then we'll do the install. Okay, we're finally ready to get this piece of wood installed up here on the wall. I've already got the wall marked out with some crayon where the studs are located, as you can see here. And what I'm going to do is I just need to get a couple of nails started. For the nails, I've got 3-inch galvanized nails, which should be good for this particular install. They should work fine. The wood is 1.5 inches, and so that'll give me 1.5 inches grabbing inside. I'm going to put some sealant here. I'm going to use the Dynaflex Ultra in white, and I've got my flashing. It's in the shade over there, but there's my flashing that's going to go on, but you're going to see the whole thing. So first of all, let's get a couple of nails going in here, and I'll just pan back here so you can kind of see everything. Alright, so what I've done is, you saw that on this flashing I had put sealant between the wood and the flashing. Now I'm just using these shims. I'll leave those overnight until that flashing sets up, and then that will hold it down tight and keep it at a nice angle. Now we're going to focus our attention to right here, and what I'm going to do, this is make sure that that's up against that tight, and we'll get that real good in a second. But we also want to get this here and also this edge right here really good, like that. And we want to hold that down in place. Let me show you how we're going to do that. I'm just going to take a clamp here like this, underneath, grab it right there at the edge, squeeze that down, make sure that that's exactly where we want it, and we'll leave that clamp in place overnight, and that will totally keep this 100%. Make sure that's good. I gotta just put a little bit more sealant here. I got a little bit of a sharp edge right there. Just want to hit that with the hammer. That's pretty much it. There's a close-up shot of all that sealant they got on there. It's really sealed up. I'm going to paint that whole thing white so that there won't be any contrast. I was installing this board when I realized that this was too long. I forgot that I had trimmed this piece down, meaning that this was going to overhang. This is how much I needed to cut off. So I got my chop saw out over there, and I just simply measured it out and took off the appropriate amount. So originally this was on like this. I didn't realize it, but there is also some termite damage right there. I want to just get a little compound Bondo in on that, and then just get this primed and painted. In the same process, I also, because I was in the process of installing this, I even had went in and put the drip edge in, the flashing, and so I had to modify this. So I've already modified it, and I've already cut it down. It was a little bit of extra, so I could bring it down, put a lip on there, and you notice how I brought out the tip of the lip, so you don't want it going flat against your wood. You want it to be brought out, so the rain comes down, comes out here, and then drips out, not touching the wood. Same thing with this one here. As the rain comes down here, you don't want this flat. Let me give you an example here with this putty knife. You don't want this flat, physically touching. You want this to be up like that there, as an example, away, so when it rains the water sheds not touching the wooden components and so forth, or bringing it capillary action, bringing it back, and then just getting all of this wet. So, and then the wetness is what will destroy your wood with the wood rot. So what you want to do, and what I'm doing, is I'm just taking a pair of lineman's pliers, which I got right here, and you bring that drip edge out. Let me show you. You bring this out so that it creates a nice lip. Let me show you. Alright, so basically what you do is just take your lineman's pliers like this, and just get it and bring it out like this, just so that way when this butts into the wood, this lip here is not physically touching the wood. There's a gap of, let's just say, 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to do that all the way down this whole strip here, just to make sure that there's a nice even reveal for that drip edge. So that's all. Alright, so basically I got it all the way down across that lip, but basically here is the detail that I'm trying to show you. It's when this is in, this metal is up against the wood flat here, but where my finger is, that's where you're producing that small lip, so it's not physically touching this wood over here. There's a gap there to allow it to drip off. That's all. Okay, I just want to show you how I got that clamped on the flashing to make sure that the silicone, when that dries up, the sealant, when that dries up, that dries up tight to that. And then I put these wood shims in between the window flashing and the wood flashing that I just put on. So when it dries in there taut. And then for the nail holes, it's hard to see through the camera here, but I just went and took some sealant, which happens to also be white, and put that over all the nail holes, so that's all going to dry so that the nails are not fully exposed. Right now I got this seam here. I'm going to take my sealant and go and put that in right now. Okay, everything is in here and just setting up. Let me show you the detail that I got here so you can see everything in great detail. So notice how, if you remember correctly, on this window wood flashing that I have, it's a Z shape. So there's one lip that comes down here, then it goes flat, then it comes back up and goes up inside of this area here. So if you'll notice the way I've got this sealant in right here, where this edge is right there, this is all completely waterproofed all the way down and through. I got the sealant in where this wood joint is here to this wood joint. All that is sealed, and that is sealed all the way going underneath right there. So we are 100% waterproofed. So that takes care of that. And then this is all setting up. All my nail holes, I put sealant on to cover up the galvanized nails, and then I'll paint that later on, just to give this a final coat of paint after everything is all set up here. So I won't paint it till I do some more painting. But anyways, I just thought I'd show you the board just sitting in place here, and it's in there really well. Okay, I just want to give you an update on the project. This is the second piece of wood that's going to go on. I have one coat of primer and one coat of paint on here now, and I got to do one more coat of paint, which I have right here, which is going to go on. But before I do that, I wanted to show you something. Just flip this thing over. Hang on, let me put the camera. Okay, this is the back side of the piece of wood that's going to go up against the wall. You don't need to prime and paint this for weather protection. I am priming and painting it for termite protection. Now, I should have done this at the beginning, but I didn't. You see, I still have where the two pieces of wood join together from here and here. There's still a gap in some sections. The paint and the job didn't quite seal those up together. And right here. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put some sealant on here, just some DAP latex sealant that's paintable in 20 minutes. And this way, when I go to put on my next coat of paint, which by the way, the cure time on this particular paint is 4 hours, so I still need to wait 2 more hours before I can put that last coat of paint on. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and put some sealant on in all these areas right here. And I just wanted to show you what I'm doing and my reasoning for why I'm doing it. It's just for termite protection. Otherwise, but if I leave that open and a termite was to come in back here, that is an inviting opening for a termite to come and start digging out this wood. By doing total encapsulation, I'm creating an environment that is unfriendly for the termite to go into. So I'm going to put the sealant on, and then I'll just show you that real quick. Okay, so now let me give you a detailed shot of that joint, and you'll see how I just have it sealed up. I mean, this is not rocket scientist stuff. I'm just showing you what I'm doing. And I'm trying to explain to you why I'm doing it, and I think this is going to be a big benefit. By the way, I'd like to know your thoughts. Do you think I'm going overboard with this type of protection for this board? This board is going to be within 4 feet of the ground level or the grade level. So considering I'm at this stage of a construction project and I have to paint the front of the board anyways, to me, I think that the extra time and energy needed just to get the back of the board and the front of the board is well worth it. But I want to hear what you have to say about it. Please put it into the comments so that this forum can understand whether the general philosophy is that this is a good best practice for construction, or if this is just overkill. So anyways, love to know your thoughts. Thank you. Oh, by the way, don't forget to click on like while you're there. Now we have 2 coats of paint, a coat of primer on this wood piece, totally encapsulated, painted all the way around, and we have to put it on the building just like this one is installed. I have the flashing just sitting on top. I want to put some sealant underneath, so I'm going to do that. I've got actually 2 sealants this time. This one here, this particular DAP one that's in the caulking tube right now, that one is very inexpensive. It's like $3 a tube. The other one, which is the Dynaflex Ultra on the other side of it, that one is like $6-7 a tube. So I'm only want to use the expensive stuff on the outside. So I'll start off with the cheap stuff that's going to go underneath the flashing, and then we're going to do the full install, and then the wood trim will be up. We have to waterproof everything, and I'll show you the full sealing job when we're done. Let's get to it. Alright, so I just have the board held in place with this a 2x4 and a 2x6 or 2x8, and you can see on the paper how I've already got my studs identified, so I know exactly where my studs are located, so I can start nailing in. I'll get a couple of nails over here. Here's the nails, 3-inch galvanized nails. because this end, there's a stud that's right there. See if I can show it to you. I know it's got some shading going on, but I can't help that. So basically, I need to toenail within the last couple of inches, and that's where the stud is, but I don't want to crack the wood, so I have to do a pre-drill. So I got my drill ready. Let's pre-drill it to prevent the cracking and then put the nails in. Alright, now that I've got that tacked in on that side, I can go ahead and and I've got a couple of nails holding it in over there. So it's not, the board's not going to go anywhere. I've got 2 nails holding it in there. I'm just going to go ahead and finish nailing this off. Alright, so now you see the board is up there, and I've got my flashing that I put on here, and I'm just tacking it down with these wood shims to make sure that it adheres to the wood, because I put that sealant on just before I did this job. So when the sealant, I want that flashing to dry, adhering itself to the wood, so it's in there tight. All of this is, when I cut this board here, I cut it at an angle on the table saw, so this is draining down and away from the house. It's at a natural pitch, a downward pitch, so that the rain comes down, comes over here and down. Now, I got my tube, my caulking gun here with the Dynaflex Ultra, and I got a brand new tube of sealant Dynaflex right there. So I can start now waterproofing. All these, like this gap right here, on all of this area right here, I want all that sealed so that the water, when it comes down the house, has to, the only path of travel it can do is come out, down, and out. Now, I don't know, when, if you were looking at the video, you saw me take this putty knife and I was putting it up here in an effort to try to bend out this, because you don't want the flashing tight up against the wood. You want it out away from the wood, okay? So when the rain comes off of this flashing, it won't grab onto the wood and down. We want it to drip off the house. So ideally you want this at an angle coming away from the wood. That's the preferred method. So I just kind of pulled it out, made sure that I had a gap in here. I mean, I could probably even be more aggressive, but I'm also, trying to make it look pretty too. So I'm doing a couple different things here, but you can see how I can stick my putty knife in here. So there's a gap distance between here and there. Now, on all my nail heads, you saw that I used the countersink and I recessed every single one of them. Now, when I take the Dynaflex Ultra right there, I can take that putty knife right there, and I can go through, put the sealant on, take the putty knife and go over it, and then I'll paint everything one final coat when I'm done. But all these nail heads are going to be buried so that you won't see anything. The final product will look more like this side over here. I still have to give it a coat of paint, because I figure once I do the paint, I'll do this side and this side at the same time. But I've already put the sealant on. Notice how you can, even at this level, you cannot even see the nail heads. That's what this, where you can see all the nail heads, is going to look like when I get the sealant on there. So I'm going to start doing my waterproofing right now. I just wanted to explain to you the stage that I was at. Okay, let me give you a detailed shot of exactly how I did this. You can see I've got this 100% waterproof. No way water is going to come down here, go in past my sealant, and get into my water on the back side. So I'm like 100% protected. And I got the flashing put in here to protect the wood. So I'm like so much protected, it's incredible. And I've got all of this. Let's see if I can show you that. Let me move my angle here. Right there, I got all that sealed up, and then I started to seal up these nail heads. They're probably not even showing up in the camera, but I can see a little bit of discoloration right there and right there. Now I'm just going to continue that same process through to the rest of these nail heads, and plus seal up that side over there. Here is your final product for the wood trim. The only thing that's left to do is I have to wait 2 hours for the sealant to set up. Then I can remove the wood, and then I can paint everything white, so everything will just be all white. But this is what everything looks like. There's your detail on your waterproofing there and there, and you already know that I'm holding that in place. Everything is sealed up there. By the way, I want to mention this. The part that I am not sealing, this is important, is right where my finger is located here. This is underneath the wood. Let me give you a back perspective. So this is the building paper touching the building paper going up, and the back section of this wood, that does not have sealant. That way, if there's any moisture or anything that is in back of this piece of wood, for some reason, it will come down the building paper, go in back of the stucco, go down to your weep screed, and then exit the property that way. That is the paper is the waterproofing. So I don't want to put sealant there, because if I did, and if some water was to somehow, if this sealant was to be compromised, or something else, or some part of the window system was to be somehow a failure, and water was to get in back of this wood, I want a place for the water to escape the house. That would be down the building paper, through the weep screed to the foundation, and out that way. That's the path of travel I want it to go in. So other than that, that's the complete portion for the wood trim installation for this project. Okay, that completes this portion of the project. If you would like to see the entire series, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, Ken Training. Check out Stucco Repair Series, and you'll see the entire steps start to finish. This particular video segment was only focusing on the wood trim and the repairs that I made to the wood trim, putting it all together, and then physically installing it on the house, making sure that it was all waterproofed and so forth. You saw every step of that nature. The next portion of this series, I'm going to show, we're ready for stucco lath netting. So the stucco lath can now go on the building paper. That's going to be the next step in this series. I hope you liked the video. Please click on like if you did. If you didn't like the video, please leave a comment explaining why you didn't like the video. And subscribe to my channel, Ken Training. Catch you on the flip side.